Scarlet has become the signature move to Volcanion. It doesn't really change anything due to the fact that Steam Eruption was better, but Skull being removed from so many mons, especially Toxapex, is a big nerf. You have Recover, Roost, Slack Off, and such had the PP reduced from 10 PP to 5 PP. That's a big deal, like with mons like Corviknight, Toxapex, they cannot no longer come in as many moves. This severely nerfs Stall. Hail is replaced by Snowstorm, which boosts the defense of ice types. That's to keep it in conjunction with Sand. Most of the Gen 8 tutor moves are gone. Triple Axle, Poltergeist, Scorching Sands. This is pretty bad. Your ghost types are now going to be much worse. Triple Axle being removed is pretty bad for Weavile in particular, as it also lost knockoff this gen. Aromatherapy and Power Punch being removed is eh. Headlong Rush is now a ground type close combat. This makes Ursaluna, the new Pokemon, very threatening. You have Wave Crash, now a water type Flare Blitz / Woodhammer, giving water types a better stab. Raging Fury is fire type Outrage, it kind of makes sense. Chloroblast is now a steel type Mind Blown clone. That's kind of crazy. I don't really know if it was going to be used. It never really was in the past. Tile Claw is an 80 base power move that has a 46% chance to inflict poison, plus 16% chance to inflict paralysis, and 16% chance to inflict sleep. This is very random. Going to be kind of crazy. I'm not sure yet. Breakwind Storm, there's some signature moves for the for Thundurus, Tornadus, and Landorus. I don't know if that's going to be used either, but it is a cool buff. Trailblaze is a grass type flame charge. This is very big. It's going to be used on a lot of mons, as you're going to see soon. Ice Spinner is an 80 base power physical move that removes terrain. This is to nerf terrain, as it's like always omnipresent in the meta. Axe Kick is like a jump kick, but with the chance to confuse. Still has recoil if it misses. I don't think this is going to be used. High Jump Kick is just strictly better. Last for Specs is a physical ghost type that gets stronger depending on how many team members are dead. At first, I thought this was a terrible move, but it's actually kind of crazy because it can go up to 300 base power. Chilling Waters is the new Scald replacement. It's 50 base power and always lowers attack, but it doesn't burn. It's a big boon to physical attackers. They've actually got a lot this gen. Grassy Glide has been removed, and its base power is 70 to 60. That's for when it comes back. Sleep and unfortunately Freeze are here to stay, while Frostbite is stuck in Legends Arceus. Or Arceus, whatever you say. Charizard loses Scorching Sand, Defog, and Roost. This is not that crazy. Scorching Sands kind of sucks down in PU, but it won't really matter. Wigglytuff gets Nasty Pot, it gets everything. Dog Trio gets Swords Dance. This is huge. That means it won't have to rely on Choice Band anymore. You can go Sash with Swords Dance. Gold Duck gets Nasty Pot and Power Jam. I should have had that a while ago. Hisuian Arcanine gets Stab, Head Smash. Justified, along with Close Combat, Rockhead, Psychic Fangs, Head Smash, and Flare Blitz. That is insane. It's going to be an insane wall breaker. I don't think it'll be OU by standard, but it will definitely be used in the OU tier. I think it'll be more UU. Slowbro loses Teleport and Scald. This is a huge nerf to them. It does get Chilling Water, though, so it's not that crazy. Muck gets Toxic Spikes and Drain Punch. Makes sense. Low and Muck gets Drain Punch. Also makes sense. Gengar lost Sludge Wave, but gets Toxic Spikes. I think this is definitely a buff to Gengar. It loses 5 base power in Sludge Wave, but it got Toxic Spikes, which is always great. Scyther, and by association, Cleaver and Scissor get Close Combat instead of Superpower. This is so much better. It's going to be used a lot. They lose Dual Wing Beat and Bug Bite. No more Technician. Gyarados lost Power Whip. Kind of crazy. It's had that for a long time, but it might come back, I'm guessing. I'm not sure. All evolutions get Calm Mind and Trailblaze. That means every evolution will have a way to boost its speed. Vaporeon loses Toxic and Scald. It will no longer be able to really stall things out. All the Galarian birds get Tailwind. Zapdos lost Blaze Kick though. Articuno loses Defog and Mind Reader. That means no more Mind Reader, Sheer Cold shenanigans. Zapdos and Moltres lose Defog. Zapdos loses Toxic. Dragonite loses Defog, Dual Wing Beat, and Heal Bell. Mew loses Knockoff, Roost, Defog, Toxic, Teleport, and Roost. That's a big nerf. And Mewtwo gets Earth Power and Power Gem. It's just kind of cool that it gets that. Nothing crazy. Hisuian Typhlosion now learns Eruption and Focus Blast. It now has Frisk, replacing Flash Fire, which is kind of worse, maybe good in VGC. Ampharos gets Dazzling Gleam, cool coverage. Sudowoodo gets Trailblaze and Spikes. Maybe it can raise its speed now. I don't really know, though. Quagsire gets Stealth Rock, Spikes, and Toxic Spikes, but loses Scald. Espeon finally gets Power Gem, makes sense. Umbreon gets Thunder Wave, but loses Toxic. Scizor gets Close Combat, but loses Roost, Dual Wing Beat, and Bug Bite. Fortress gets Body Press, really cool. And Blissey loses Toxic, Wish, and Teleport. This is a big change. It's never been like this. This is gonna change the meta completely. Now that Blissey can't stall you out. Special attackers will get better. Physical attackers will get better with the Skull nerf. This is extremely unexpected. Tyranitar gets Power Gem, but loses High Horsepower, Superpower, Roar, and Toxic. This is a big nerf to Tyranitar, especially losing Superpower. It's all kind of crazy. Pelipper loses Defog and Scald. That means Rain teams can no longer use Pelipper as a defogger. Gardevoir keeps Aura Sphere instead of... And it also has Focus Blast, but Aura Sphere might be better. Breloom gets Close Combat, Gunk Shot, and Bulldoze. Big for Breloom. Bulldoze is actually Technician boosted, if I remember correctly. Hariyama gets Drain Punch and Headlong Rush, which is the Close Combat ground type. Sableye gets Giga Drain for some reason. Medicham gets Axe Kick, Close Combat, and Trailblaze. I've always wanted it to get Close Combat. I'm happy. Grumpig gets Nasty Plot from BDSP. Dazzling Gleam and Earth Power. Good buff. Swalot gets Stuffed Cheeks, Body Press, Swords Dance, and Toxic Spikes. I don't know if this is going to work for buffing it, but that's pretty cool. Zangoose gets Agility, and Bayonet gets Swords Dance. Good for Bayonet. He also has Sucker Punch. Tropius gets Hurricane and U-Turn. Terrible stats. I don't know if it's going to be used. Groudon loses Heat Crash, but gains Crunch, Spikes, Will-O-Wisp, and Body Press. I think this is a really good buff. Groudon really used Fire Punch over Heat Crash anyways. Rayquaza gets U-Turn, Stealth Rock, and Wild Charge, but loses V-Create. This is even. Luxray gets Trailblaze, but loses Superpower. This is bad that it loses Superpower, but it can use Trailblaze and then Facade with Guts, which is insane. Vespiquen gets Spikes for some reason. Floatzel gets Wave Crash and Ice Spinner. Might make it better, I'm not really sure. Gastrodon loses Scald and Toxic, but gets Stealth Rock, Spikes, and Chilling Water. I don't know how I feel about this. Drifblim lost Mystical Fire, but does finally get Stab Air Slash, so that's cool. Garchomp gets Spikes and Liquidation, but loses Scale Shot and more. This is a buff for Garchomp, but it's kind of weird that they got rid of, Scale Shot on a Dragon type. They won't even give it Dragon Dance, so it has, no way of boosting its speed except for Salac Berry. Toxicroak keeps Close Combat from PLA, that's great. Weavile loses Triple Axle and Knock Off, but gets Ice Spinner. That means it's going to have to run Throat Chop and Icicle Crash, which are not the best. Gallade now has a new ability, Sharpness, which increases the power of slashing moves like Psycho Cut, Sacred Sword, which it now has access to, Night Slash, Shadow Claw, Leaf Blade, and Aqua Cutter. Also now learns Agility. This is insane. This is a mod that I might personally use in the future. I would consider it. Uxie's, Azelf's, and Mesprit's signature move, Mystical Power, is now an 80 base power special stab move that increases special attack. So it's like a charge beam for them. Dialga now learns Trick and Focus Blast. That's good. Palkia now learns Trick. Heatran gets Power Gem but loses Toxic and Eruption. This kind of eliminates it being Scarf Eruption. And losing Toxic is a big nerf. Cresselia got a stat nerf. I really hate that it did this. I always thought it was hidden gem and kind of underrated and no one really used it as much. But that kind of sucks. Arceus now learns Healing Wish. It's getting all these moves. It's just getting up to date. It always gets all the moves. Hisuian Samurai also has Sharpness, same as Gallade, and gets Knockoff, Sucker Punch, Sacred Sword, Megahorn, Drill Run, and Swords Dance. Ceaseless Edge now lays Spikes. So it's going to be like Dynamax Caparajah. Its special move. Here's a huge one. Hisuian Lilligant now gets a physical type Quiver Dance. Physical attackers this gen are getting so many buffs. Pasculine also gets Stab Wave Crash for that Reckless. Crocodile loses High Horsepower Knockoff. And Darkest Lariat too. I don't know what it's supposed to run now. but gains Gunk Shot. I think this is still a nerf. Hisuian, Zoroark got both its special attack and speed nerfed by 5 points each. I guess it was just for balance issues and to align it with Unovian Zoroarks. Sawsbucks now gets Body Slams and Headbutt and Play Rough. It already has Wild Charge and Stomping Tantrum before. That's great. Our Momola loses Skull, which is terrible. Elitros gets Stomping Tantrum, Liquidation, and Close Combat, but loses Knockoff. That's a buff. Haxorus now gets Iron Head, so now it can use something that's super effective against fairies instead of Poison Jab. It's more spammable. Beartic gets Earthquake in Close Combat. That's insane. Bishop loses Knockoff, but it can actually hold an Eviolite now due to its new evolution. Hisuian Braviary replaces Defiant with Tinted Lens. I don't think that's great. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Esper Wing increases speed. Hydreigon loses Roost and Defog, but now in Stealth Rock. We'll see how that develops. Volcarona also loses Roost and Defog. Still has Morning Sun, so it doesn't really matter. The Forces of Nature all lose Defog and Toxic and all that. But Landorus does get Nasty Plot now, and it has ran special movesets in the past. It has a crazy moveset. Here's a lot of good buffs. Chestnut gets Close Combat, Body Press, Super Fang, and Wide Guard. Delphox gets Focus Blast and Nasty Plot. Greninja gets Swords Dance and Liquidation. Protean was nerfed this gen, so that's great. Sylveon loses Mystical Fire. This really helps because Steel types can now really counter it. Hisuian Guju replaces Overcoat with Shell Armor. That's great. Carbon gets Spikes. Both Avalogs now have Icicle Crash. And Diancie gets Spikes. Hisuian Decidueye now gets Roost, Defog, Close Combat, Trailblaze, Knockoff, Sucker Punch, and Shadow Sneak. Triple Arrows is now 90 base power, and Scrappy is its new hidden ability. That's insane. Oricorio gets the Quiver Dance. Toxapex loses Knockoff and Skull. Big nerf to Stall. Mudsdale finally gets Stone Edge. That's amazing. Lurantis loses Super Power. I hate this. Salazzle gets Toxic Spike. That's great. Serena loses Triple Axle and Knockoff. That sucks. Palossand loses Scorching Sands. That doesn't really matter. It has Earth Power. Just loses some utility. Kamala loses Last Resort. This is big because it can no longer run Choice Band Last Resort. Bruxish gets Wave Crash. And Magina gets Spikes, which is probably going to be the new meta, knowing Pokemon. I'm going to list the rest off since they're just like moveset changes. Rillaboom loses Grassy Glide, which may come back high horsepower and superpower. They destroyed my boy. Cinderace gets Swords Dance, but Proteum was nerfed. Dreadnought gets Shell Smash. That's freaking insane. Colossal gets Power Gem, but loses Scald. Barraskewda loses Flip Turn. That's bad. Toxtricity gets Toxic Spike. That's great. Heterine loses Expanded Force. That's a nerf. Grimmsnarl gets Parting Shot, which is great. Berserker gets Stealth Rock, probably going to be used down in the lower tiers. Indeedee loses Expanding Force and Mystical Fire. Zacian and Zamazenta were nerfed. Zamazenta does get Body Press, which we've all been asking for. Eternatus now learns Fire Blast, and I forgot to mention, Zacian's ability only works one time per game. Urshifu gets Swords Dance, but Wicked Blow is weakened. Zarude also gets Swords Dance and Trailblaze. That's great. I'm going to use that. Regieleki gets Charge Beam. Regidrago gets Earthquake and Earth Power. Glacier and Calyrex Ice both lose high horsepower, and Glacial Lance is weakened. Spectrier gets Draining Kiss. I thought it already had that. It might just be the higher form. Cleavor's Stone Axe now leaves Stealth Rocks, exactly like Caparaja, and it gets Close Combat. Ursaluna now learns Facade, Earthquake, Close Combat, Gunk Shot, Play Rough, Crunch, Taunt, Bulk Up, Swords Dance, Belly Drum, and even Drain Punch. This is going to be the new Pokemon. Everyone's hyped about this. I have no idea how this is going to end. Basculegion replaces Rattle with Swift Swim. He gets Last Respects, an insane move. Sneasel now has Unburden and learns Swords Dance, so it's going to be the new Hawlucha. Acrobatics, Rock Slide, Fire Punch, Fake Out, U-Turn, and Step Gunk Shot. Overquill gets a huge overhaul in its moveset, and Enamorus gets Superpower with Contrary. There's a lot of nerfs to Stall, and a lot of buffs to physical attackers. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about this. I think it's pretty crazy. Well, I'll see you next time.